Well, let's since you broached the subject, let's talk about the cancer and your recovery of that. If you want to just talk a little bit about how you became to know that, because when I talk with people in my health and wellness stuff, is that I always like to get people is to describe, because most people when they talk about going through something, some type of health challenge, they never really talk about like the symptoms of what they noticed it's starting. I That's what I find mostly in the world. So, and I think it helps people to know, like, oh, well, I felt this, or I felt this sign, or this symptom, or something like this, and this is how I started feeling these things. So maybe you could talk to that.
Well, let me start by saying that almost as a tactic of dealing with this for me has been a good feeling that I get when I'm able to pick people up that are struggling and maybe have fear of this disease or other situations because I'm pretty open about it. Um, so it is something that helps me get out of bed is to not show that fear and and live my life as a message of comfort because I had people like that in my life who who were living well. And when you have cancer, it's not very it hurts to hear about, well, this person died, that person died, my uncle had it, oh yeah, he, you know when I would talk to somebody where there was hope, uh, where they were living a good life, it felt me like I had a chance and that this wasn't over for me because it can be a very bleak prognosis and where it started for me. So let me just say that first. I'm good with talking about it uh, because I get a reward from uh, trying to do the best I can and delivering hope. And I don't know everything, and I will share some of my tactics and some of my ideas. You're in the health and wellness, and that is a very important piece of my approach to this. Um, it started for me when I noticed some acid reflux, and I had talked to my uh, general doctor about this. They put me on omeprazole. I have stage 4 esophageal cancer, just for the record.
Yeah.
That's how it started, and that's where it is. Um, I uh, started on the omeprazole, something that apparently you don't want to be on long term. It can interfere with the absorption of nutrients, and and then I was about 6 months later, I had a hip replacement surgery. So I have a titanium left hip. Uh, and I always loved the Bionic Man, $6 million man as a kid growing up. So it seemed pretty cool. Um, about 4 days after that, I mean, I was walking pretty good and getting around, definitely, with a cane very well. Uh, and uh, I noticed I couldn't hold down pain meds. And there was just a problem with my digestion that I noticed. Like sometimes things would be going down and it felt like something was going up. There just felt like there was a disruption. And then 4 days after the hip thing, I told my doctor, I said, something just doesn't seem right. I, uh, I want to know what the next step is. And she said, well, endoscopy. We'll go down and maybe see what is going on in your GI tract. I apologize. My camera work's not the best.
Oh, that's
Uh,
fine. I don't
and
record the video anyways.
Okay. And um, and when we did that endoscopy, it was discovered stage 3, probably fairly advanced. There were lymph nodes involved
Hmm.
at the lower third of my esophagus. Well, I had really no knowledge of this process and was pretty. naive and uneducated about cancer, period. So I remember my first meeting with the oncologist, uh, and I remember him describing kind of the process. And, he was pretty, not candy coating it, but he was like, this is going to be very hard on you. And my dad was with me.
Mm,
And he said, uh, he said, you're going to have a port. He showed me what a port was. He told me you're going to lose your hair, you're going to lose your eyelashes, your fingernails. Uh, you, and what really hit me was you're going to be eating out of a feeding tube,
mm.
and explained to me that. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm going to be eating out of a tube. And what first got me jump started on this was, let me take a drink, a hit of macchiato before I tell you this.
Yeah, yeah.
I could see my father out of the corner of my eye. And I have wonderful parents, and my dad played guitar. And, I have a very good relationship with him. And I was not about to show fear to my father and not put him through watching his son give up or be scared. And that was the beginning of where I found the strength for how I was going to approach this, like head on. It's like, the people that you care about, which is, if I was going to give advice to somebody, you find those purposes, you find your circle and your reasons, and you hang on to those things. And it started with my father on the first piece of news, and I was like, pin me to the cross. My body is designed to heal, and I will climb out of this hole. This is
Wow.
a short term thing, and that's when it started. I wish I knew a lot more of what I know now. So I started chemo and radiation,
Yeah.
uh, and I coasted through that pretty good. And then there was a surgery, which is called an esophagectomy. They took the lower third of my esophagus and the top 15% of my stomach and removed them and sewed them together. So I no longer have what's called your Barrett's sphincter, which is kind of a little clamp between your stomach and the esophagus. So if I'm laying in bed sometimes early in the morning, I will get kind of some acid reflux and I'll have Tums by the bed. Um, I had that surgery. Uh, so that was 3 layers deep. They cut from behind my lungs and pretty much shook hands in the middle. And it was a pretty serious surgery. I was in the hospital for, I think, 9, 10 days.
Wow.
Uh, um, I don't remember it as being a bad time, quite honestly. I remember that I was looking forward to that first time waking up from surgery thinking, like, this is my low point. Everything from here is healing and is climbing on my way out. And I was going to prove to the people that I loved to not be afraid. And I have an adopted son who, I'm not sure how old he was then, or, he was in high school. And I remember him looking at me. And when I explained it to him, that this was 11 days after my hip replacement, I said, your dad is tough and he heals. And I walked around, did a couple of kicks, and said, I just had my hip replaced. And I'm doing this. And we're going to do this. It's going to be okay. And, it was those people where the strength came from to do that. I, uh, I was pretty ambitious with it. One of my very first shows after my surgery, the surgery was July 17th, I believe. I think it was 2018. And Hairball played the Minnesota State Fair, the grandstands, the big stage, you know. I
Yeah.
had actually played on that stage with Slave Raider warming up for Poison for a sold out crowd there. So if you're from Minnesota, that's a wow, that's pretty full circle. That's a pretty big gig.
Yeah.
I I mean I so I had about 6 weeks maybe, or yeah, that fair is like the first week in August, and that was the first show I played after getting cut fully through. I mean, I woke up, I had 8 tubes coming out of me. Uh, I had my mom take a picture because, of course, I couldn't see anything. I remember when I first woke up, you've got that stuff they put on your eyes,
Yeah.
the gel and all of that. And I could hear everybody's voice. I remember just reaching my hand out. Because to be honest with you, my surgeon said he lost 3 people in these surgeries.
Oh, wow.
So, we weren't kidding around. You know,
Yeah.
this was a thoracic heart surgeon uh, that did this procedure. And I just remember holding my hand out and grabbing my father's hand, my mother, my son. Hunter, my youngest boy, was just a few years old at this time, not understanding any of it. And that was who was in the room with me. And I just knew that I was alive. And that was step one. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them. And so fast forward, we played that show at the state fair, and I had stuff taped over because I still had many stitches. I had 3 layers deep of stitches, and
Wow.
as intense as this stuff sounds when I explain, like, oh, gee, I really don't remember it as being a tough time in my life, or I had kind of these rocky, feeling cool moments in my life. Like, man, yeah, but Evil Knievel had every bone in his body broken, so this is cool. You know,
Right.
look at the $6 million man. Man, watch the intro of that. That guy was totally messed up, and they put him. It's like now I'm just like them. Cool. And hell yes, my surgeon was like, well, wow, you really want to play that show? That's pretty ambitious, being that we cut you. Like, I shook hands, like I cut you in the back and split your ribs, and I cut you in the front and took it all apart, and we went all the way through. We uh, and that show was great. It was fun, and I made the whole show. I remember I didn't realize how weak I was until the intro tape rolled, and we had stairs that went up to these stairs where we came down for the intro, and
Oh.
we were opening up with Unchained by Van Halen. The intro tape is rolling. My guitar was going zzz, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? John, my tech, I've got no guitar signal. Like, this is going to end. Like, we had the
Oh, man.
highest attendance at the grandstands. I'm going to go out there. Spotlights are going to be on me. No guitar signal. It's like, okay, that's one problem. Okay, great. Now understand, I had a hip replacement that didn't heal right from chemo because that attacked all rapid growing cells,
Sure.
which is healing, which
Right.
was my hip. I realized then that I couldn't climb up those stairs for the intro. My
Oh.
drum tech, I'm like looking at him like, help me. He's going, and I had a railing on those stairs, and I limped down, just feeling dizzy because I didn't trust my balance from the hip surgery. I had pads taped so that my guitar wouldn't rub on the scars because my incision goes from one side to the other.
Sure.
Uh, on my side, I was fully opened up, gutted, and we did it, and it was cool, and it was fun, and nobody knew that it was. And I have a few videos where Hairball fans like, "Wow, is that happy up there?" It's like, yeah, I made it, man. I got to do a show. So don't let anybody tell you that rock and roll doesn't heal, because it worked for me. And a month and a couple weeks later, we did a full hairball show, and it was great. And that was the beginning of the story. And then
Wow.
you talk about health and wellness and nutrition. So slowly, I started realizing the importance of the role of nutrition, and started reading more books on cancer and people that had beat it. without chemo, without radiation, uh, with natural means. Because for those of you out there that have this or want to research, the statistics on chemotherapy versus cancer stem cells are not very good. Now,
Exactly.
most oncologists are not probably going to really give you the clear facts on that. Matter of
Mhm.
fact, there was some research done on that, and I don't have the exact numbers because I'm drinking coffee and I parked my car, so I'd be safe. But um, it's amazing how many stage 4 patients believe that their treatment regimen is going to save them, and versus the opinion of the oncologist and the persons that have been pushing those treatment uh, regimens that understand that it is not going to. Uh,
Correct.
Yet there's an awful lot of money. I mean, yeah, one of my infusions, which is Keytruda, Herceptin, and I take an oral Xeloda, are tens of thousands, like I believe like around 60, like every 3 weeks. So I'm not saying I love my oncologist and I love all of that. But if people understand the destruction that creates that I didn't understand in the beginning of
Right.
what was going on, and they also maybe are not completely enlightened to what the real statistics are of oncology. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not, please don't take my advice as though I've got some plaques on my walls. I'm a guitar player doing the best I can that studies a lot, and I don't believe any one source has the answer. But there is one piece of advice that I think is universal that I think will resonate with you. That I think is a win-win. People see me living well, so they come to me, or what they think is well, and quite frankly, what I think is well, and they come to me for advice sometimes, and I love that. It's great that maybe I could be a piece of hope for some people. And I, I say the one thing that you can do is start eating clean,
100%.
uh, because food is medicine, and a lot of these diseases did not exist in the numbers that they did when our food was cleaner. There was a day when everything was organic.
Yeah.
Uh, But now we have to put special labels on things to prove that they're organic. And I think that the FDA is fairly twisted in with what it's. I don't think it should be so hard for people to read labels and understand what they're putting in their mouth, but it is. And what does it truly mean? Pasture raised, free range, organic. Like, what does it take to meet those definitions in our food and our medicines and what we eat? And it's, I'm not really a big fan of the FDA. There's a guy that I follow, Chris Beat Cancer. He's like, if you follow the CDC and the FDA, you do so at your own peril. It's best you advocate for yourself. And I try to do that. I'm not trying to throw all those people on Western medicine under the bus because, for crying out loud, I mean, in biblical times, 30 years old was probably an old man. So certainly we've gained some ground that people live longer. But I am a big advocate, as I'm guessing that you probably are, that diet and lifestyle are a major piece. As a matter of fact, a very small number of cancers are genetic. And there's something that a Dr. Thomas Lodi says that I think makes a lot of sense. Well, it's in my heredity. My mom and my father had cancer. It's like, oh, well, you know what is in your genes? You're Italian. Pasta, meatballs.
Yep.
That's you guys have. There are similarities in your family and your upbringing
Right.
that are as much as your genetics. Uh, I'm not trying to knock Italians. I love Italian food, but you understand what I'm trying.
No.
say.
Your point is spot on. When people tell me, "Well, it's genetics," I say, "Well, the only thing that you share with your family is you're eating the same exact food that your family eats. So that's why you have the same diseases as you go through life, is because you have the same lifestyle and food regimen. So genetics loads the gun, lifestyle decides whether the trigger is pulled or not, and that's the way it's been for centuries.
We all have cancer cells in us,
Absolutely.
and it's a question of the rest of your body's systems working right to identify those cells and keep them moving on as they're supposed to. I believe that cancer, in some ways, is a defensive mechanism of your body actually trying to protect itself. Uh, and then these tumors and cells go rogue and develop. And then when they start interfering with organs and bodily functions, that's your undoing. You
Right.
can live with cancer forever if it doesn't interfere with a function.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know everything. We're talking about a lot of medical stuff. So let me first throw that disclaimer out. Hey, I don't try to preach anybody other than when somebody comes to me asking about what they should do, I try to say, well, advocate for yourself. Try to be aware if you're going to do chemotherapy or radiation, other treatments. And I believe there are sometimes that is the call that needs to be made. And I don't dislike my oncologist, and but understand what it is. And if you're ultimately going to win in a lot of diseases, and we're speaking of cancer now, you will need your immune system to figure out those rogue cells and do what a body's supposed to do. And we do know one thing chemotherapy definitely does: it knocks down red and white counts and injures your immune system. So if I had it to do over again, hindsight, we like to say, is 50-50 in hairball. Uh, but and I try to cut myself a break. We all make mistakes in life. Stress is not good for you, so that's a big change that cancer has brought about me. It isn't that life doesn't come with stress, and being in a rock and roll circus like Hairball, I promise you, there's always a squeaky wheel. Rock and roll will always throw you problems. People will always be critics and say terrible things to you. And judge your art and tell you're a piece of crap and what you're doing. And, try to not let that stuff release some toxic stress to your body. Cancer has made me uh, be better at controlling how I let it affect me than I used to before. Um, but understanding those things, and then the first bit of advice I say is like, eat clean, get nutrients in your body. As a rule of thumb, I like to think if it grew out of the ground and it came out of clean soil, it probably has a good function for your body. Whether you believe in the, uh, I I belong to the religion of kind of the golden rule, and however things were created and stuff is above my pay grade. I really try to do good, but if there is a creation or higher being, these things that grow out of our ground are resources that are meant for our body to fix itself and function. Uh, and it makes sense to me. Uh, whether Buddha, God, or whatever it is that you personally believe, I believe that our dirt and our soil grows things that heal us and lead us to a healthy, productive life. However, uh, there is a lifespan to a gene, you know, so we will not live forever. But I like to study blue zones.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about them
So
all the time.
I try to uh, uh, adopt as many as I'm sitting here drinking garbage coffee, talking about all of this. Like I said, there's one place where I draw the line. However,
Yeah.
I do drink other special coffee in my normal routine that has been more recommended to me. by some different osteopath and natural doctors that I work with. But um, there are those things with blue zones, and I adopt their things because these people are 90 years old and they're out playing pickleball and climbing mountains,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
there are common themes to their lifestyle. And they've got the lowest rates of disease.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
there you go. This is kind of a crazy rock and roll perspective, but all of this lifestyle. When I was junior high school, I used to spend a lot of time, and I don't know if you'd call it meditating, but I used to love to watch kung fu, and I would practice guitar like I was training for the Olympics, and I would just try and get movements to muscle memory and do things so slow and think of the movements like a Shaolin priest would try to learn to walk on the fly paper and leave no trace. Uh, and I I kind of had my own little rock and roll religion of guitar. That was my personal thing. So some of this deep conversation that we've had about disease and health and wellness and all of that, you know, as silly as it seems to see this character happy with these big boots and stupid hair doing somersaults and acting like a kid when he's, in his later 50s, you know, it's all part of my art and my masterpiece. And I just have not grown up and
Well, you're
learn
in the
from my mistakes, people.
yeah, that's what we all try to do, and I think your overall point is that uh, get information and do a lot of reading, do a lot of studying, and go out there and find the information for yourself, and it'll open up a whole new world of options for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, education is Rick Emmett of Triumph, to
Yeah,
try and tie it in with music. I mean, uh, he, knowledge is king for sure. We live in a world where it's very hard to know what to trust or what to believe anymore, in my opinion.
yeah,
Um, just because our sources are, everybody's got opinions, and it's hard to not tarnish something with your opinions. So, I mean, that's the case even for books, because some people just think, well, books, well, it was in a book. Well, what if the book's wrong? Or if it was
yeah.
on YouTube, so it's not valid. Well, it could be valid. So it's very confusing. So I try to hang on to some things that resonate and make sense for me. And some of the things that we mentioned, like eating clean and the resources, I mean, that makes sense to me. And I try to simplify things and hang on to those simple things that resonate and are true to me. And, those are something when somebody comes to me that I had somebody a few days ago, same cancer as me, everything, questions about treatments and what to go. And I try not to tell somebody what to do, but there are a few pieces of advice that I think are solid. And I know that stress is not good for a body, and can people that live in a constant state of fight and flight become susceptible to disease, you know? And good sleep and good food. These are things that we all can do. There's like simple things when you get frustrated and you feel hopeless. What can I do now? Eat good food. Stop
Absolutely.
worrying. Focus on some good things that you can do. Go help somebody, because no matter what somebody says about you, you can defend that. My father said quality work can always be defended. I believe that motto, as opposed to like, yeah, but I turned out 20 of them. Yeah, but they're 20 pieces of shit. Why don't you do one good one? Uh, so I try to incorporate that motto in my life, and silly as it may seem, even in my rock and roll, when we do stuff, I try to make those decisions. So I try to pass those philosophies on, because I remember first being diagnosed and first being scared and first trying to process that and what I've learned along the way. Because just to try and wrap this up, um, I just talked to a new doctor from Florida who does more of a metabolic approach because I realize if I accept the standard of care, it is a death sentence for me. And I want to be around as long as I can and productive as I can. By the way, I did 138 shows last year.
Mm.
You know, I'm proud of that, and I think it's also something that keeps me going, keeping air through my lungs, makes my lymphatic system working. So rock and roll heals. So get the hell off your chair, come out to a hairball show. Let's get out. Let's scream together. Let's set our phones down for a little bit. Let's smell some pyro dust and let's feel some heat from some flames. Let's scream, and let's move. It's healthy. It's good for us, and then we'll go talk about it on the phone afterwards. Uh, so
Yeah.
that's where I feel good about where I'm doing, and I feel like every moment that we have good rock and roll and we have something to look forward to is another moment that we didn't spend dwelling on negative things. Give yourself something to look forward to, man.
For
Plan a
sure.
trip. Buy tickets to a rock and roll show. Always put something in your future to look forward to, which is another healing tactic for me. So I try to do those things. I try to rock and roll. I always look forward to trips. I try to plan time with that. I get a healing power from hairball shows, from seeing the faces, from seeing other people that are scared to think that let's not be scared, man. Let's be together. And you're going to get through this. I'm going to get through this. And we all will be gone someday, but it's not today. So today, let's light off the fireworks and let's play some rock and roll and let's do it really loud. Let's take some trips. Let's go smell some trees, man. The redwoods are awesome. Let's go. Eat some
Amen.
damn cookies.
Amen.
Go to a damn farmer's market.
Yeah, and when you talk about the people in the blue zones, one of the commonality to all of the blue zones are they stay active well into their 90s and into their hundreds. They're
Right.
active, and they have a community. They're with people a lot, and they're spending time doing things they really love to do. So that's a big part of longevity. 100%.
Families stayed together more in that. I played a show in Brazil and I noticed that was a common thing that was a little different than the United States. And over visiting the house, and it's like there's three generations that have stuck together in this house, and they don't end up putting their old folks to assisted living places as much in some of those areas. The people in their 90s are valued more in those communities.
Yeah.
And I want to start seeing some 90-year-olds at hairball shows because I'm going to be one pretty soon. So don't leave me alone, man. I'm going to need company. Come
Right,
on,
right.
grandma, grandpa, let's rock and roll.